Please make sure the door is closed. Every day at the rental counter inside Nagoya's Minato Sportsland skating rink, one staff member greeted every customer with a polite bow and a calm smile. When small children approached the counter, he would crouch down to meet their eyes before speaking gently to them, then disappear into the back room to bring out their skates. His hourly pay was almost identical to the college students working beside him on the same shift. Some nights, he even worked the overnight front desk at the facility's training lodge. But what nobody around him fully realized at the time was this: only 7 years later, that same man would stand on top of the Olympic podium as a pair figure skating gold medalist, helping set a world record score of 158.13 points. That man was Ryuichi Kihara. By 2019, Kihara was already a two-time Olympian, representing Japan at both the 2014 Sochi Olympics and the 2018 Pyeongchang Olympics. Yet despite reaching the world stage twice, he spent the spring of 2019 working part-time at a local skating rink in Nagoya, handing rental skates to customers. And today's story is not simply about an Olympic champion. It is the hidden story behind one of the greatest miracles in figure skating history. The story rarely told by the global media. The story of part-time jobs, uncertainty, broken partnerships, injuries, and one unforgettable sentence shouted by a Canadian coach that would ultimately change everything. What makes this story even more fascinating is that the rink where Kihara worked was never just another workplace to him. It was home. Born on August 22, 1992, in Takai City, Aichi Prefecture, Kihara had skated at this rink since childhood. This was the place where he trained through middle school and high school under coach Hiroko Sehara, building the foundation of his entire skating career. And now, in his late 20s, he had returned to that same rink, not as a star athlete but as a part-time staff member. To understand why, we need to go back to the spring of 2019. At that moment, Ryuichi Kihara stood at a crossroads in his life. He originally pursued skating as a singles skater, advancing from Chukko High School to Chukko University while competing nationally in men's singles. But at the 2012 Japanese National Championships, he finished 12th. The champion of that event was Yuzuru Hanyu, the future two-time Olympic gold medalist. In many ways, that competition forced Kihara to confront the reality of Japan's incredibly competitive singles field. Then, in January of the following year, Kihara made a life-changing decision. He attended a tryout for pair skating held at Chukko University's rink. It was there that he chose to leave singles behind and transition into pairs alongside Narumi Takahashi. And Narumi Takahashi was no ordinary skater. In 2012, she and her former partner Marvin Tran became the first Japanese pair team in history to win a medal at the World Championships. They were seen as the future of Japanese pair skating. But before the 2014 Olympics, disaster struck. Because Tran could not obtain Japanese citizenship, the team lost its chance to compete for Japan at the Olympics. Their partnership ended in late 2012, leaving Takahashi searching for a new partner. That new partner became Ryuichi Kihara, a former singles skater with almost no pair experience. Together, Takahashi and Kihara relocated to Detroit, training under coaches Yuka Sato and Jason Dungjan. Amazingly, only 11 months after forming their partnership, they won the pair's title at the 2013 Japanese National Championships and earned a spot at the 2014 Sochi Olympics. Kihara had gone from singles skater to Olympian in less than a year. But after the Olympics, Takahashi retired and the partnership came to an end. It was the first time Kihara experienced the pain of losing a skating partner. Then came another chapter. In 2018, Kihara competed at the Pyeongchang Olympics with new partner Miu Suzaki. Once again, he represented Japan on the Olympic stage. But once again, after the Olympics, the partnership dissolved. By then, Kihara had accomplished something incredibly rare in Japanese pair skating history: 2 Olympic appearances with 2 different partners. But behind the scenes, his body was falling apart. Years of competition had damaged his lower back and shoulders. Pair skating is brutal on the male skater's body. Men are responsible for lifting, throwing, and catching their partners at high speeds and dangerous heights. One mistake can lead to catastrophic injuries, and Kihara understood that reality better than anyone. At just 26 years old, he had already gone through 2 Olympic cycles, 2 partnership breakups, and worsening physical pain. Many athletes would have retired at that point. In fact, Kihara later admitted he seriously considered ending his career altogether. What worried him most wasn't whether he could find another partner. It was whether his injured body could safely support one. According to Hiroshi Ioka from Miura Sportsland, who watched Kihara closely during those years, Kihara constantly feared putting a future partner in danger because of his injuries. Ioka later described him as too serious for his own good. So why did an Olympian start working part-time at a skating rink? Kihara himself explained it honestly. People my age were already working real jobs. Meanwhile, skating was the only thing I had ever done. I started wondering what I was supposed to do next. At 26 years old, many of his friends already had careers and stable lives outside sports, but Kihara had spent almost his entire life on the ice. He had little experience in ordinary society, and so he made a decision few Olympic athletes would ever make. He walked into his hometown skating rink and applied for a part-time job. He sold tickets, handed out rental skates, monitored the ice, and worked overnight reception shifts at the training lodge. 3 days a week, he showed up quietly and worked seriously beside ordinary students and staff members. One of his coworkers at the time was former singles skater Ryuichi Kihara, another athlete who had competed at the Japanese national championships. Both men had once chased dreams on the ice. Now they found themselves adjusting to a completely different world together. Ioka remembers Kihara as incredibly humble. Eventually, he became almost like the leader among the part-time staff, he recalled. He was an Olympian, someone truly extraordinary, but he never acted superior. He spoke politely to everyone. When children came to the counter, he would kneel down to speak at their eye level. That's not something everyone can do. And this is where the story becomes even more powerful. At the rink, children practiced every day in the local skating club. Kihara watched them constantly from the side of the ice. Then, after finishing his shifts and squeezing time between his own training sessions, he quietly began volunteering to help them. He would lift the children into the air, letting them experience pair skating for themselves. At the time, those kids probably had no idea what was happening. They were simply having fun with a kind man at the rink. But years later, they would realize something unforgettable. An Olympic gold medalist had once lifted them into the air before the entire world even knew his name. Ioka later smiled as he remembered those moments. Those children were being lifted into the air by a future Olympic gold medalist. I'm sure it became one of the greatest memories of their lives. But at the time, the kids themselves had no idea what they were witnessing. To them, he was simply the kind older skater at the rink. They could never have imagined that the quiet man helping them after work would one day become a world champion. Then came June 2019. A single moment arrived that would completely change the course of Ryuichi Kihara's life forever. He was called to a pair skating tryout organized by the Japan Skating Federation at Chukkyo University's Aurora Link Ice Arena in Nagoya. Coaches, skaters, and federation officials gathered there searching for new partnerships and new possibilities. But among everyone inside the building that day, one man would end up seeing something nobody else could see. A Canadian pair skating coach had been invited to the event. His name was Bruno Marcotte. Years later, the world would know him as the coach who helped turn Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara into the best pair team on the planet. But on that particular day in Nagoya, he said one sentence that completely altered Kihara's future. "Ryuichi, put your skates back on." Just one sentence. But why did he say it? What did he see at that exact moment on the ice? And how did those few words end up changing the entire history of Japanese pair skating? To understand that, we need to go deeper into what was happening behind the scenes that day. As mentioned earlier, after the 2018 Pyeongchang Olympics, Kihara was emotionally exhausted. 2 Olympic appearances, 2 broken partnerships. Years of injuries. He was working part-time at his hometown skating rink while quietly wondering whether his competitive career was already over. Done nothing except skating my whole life. What should I do next? That question haunted him constantly. And then came the tryout in June 2019. The event took place at Chukko University's Aurora Link rink, where the Japanese Federation was holding an important selection camp for pair skaters searching for new partners. For athletes in pair skating, these tryouts can determine entire careers. One successful connection can change everything. One failed attempt can end everything. Kihara wasn't even there as a participant at first. He had simply been asked to help with the event. At the time, that was part of his normal routine, assisting Federation activities while continuing his quiet part-time life in Nagoya. But while he was helping around the rink, another drama was unfolding on the ice. A junior pair team consisting of Riku Miura and Shoya Ikehashi was struggling badly. At the time, Miura was only 17 years old. Originally a singles skater, she had been forced to rethink her future after suffering from lumbar spondylolysis, a painful lower back condition that made singles skating increasingly difficult. Determined to continue competing, she transitioned into pair skating and formed a junior pair with Ikehashi. But the partnership wasn't working. Their technical timing didn't match. Communication problems continued growing. And by that day, their relationship as a pair had essentially reached its breaking point. Serious discussions were already taking place with Bruno Marcotte, who had been invited as a coaching advisor. In other words, while Kihara was preparing to leave the rink, another skater on the ice was desperately searching for a new future. At that exact moment, Kihara believed his role for the day was finished. He removed his skates and began walking toward the automatic doors at the exit of Aurora Link. Then suddenly, "Ryuichi, put your skates back on," Bruno Marcotte shouted across the rink. That single sentence instantly changed the direction of Kihara's life, because Marcotte had noticed something, a possibility. A 17-year-old girl searching for a partner, and a 26-year-old two-time Olympian standing only a few meters away. The Canadian coach wanted to see them together on the same ice. And to fully understand why Marcotte trusted his instincts so strongly, you also need to understand who Bruno Marcotte really was. Born in Quebec, Canada in 1981, Marcotte had been a successful pair skater himself, winning multiple medals at the Canadian Championships during his competitive career. But after retiring, he quickly gained recognition as one of the most respected pair coaches in the world. And standing beside him throughout that journey was his wife and coaching partner, Megan Duhamel. Duhamel was one of the greatest pair skaters of her generation, a world champion, Olympic medalist, and one of the biggest stars in international figure skating. Together, Marcotte and Duhamel built a powerful training environment in Oakville, Canada, turning their skating club into one of the most respected pair skating centers in the world. So when Bruno Marcotte stopped Ryuichi Kihara at the rink exit that day, it wasn't random. It was the instinct of a world-class coach who believed he had just discovered something special. At the time, Kihara himself probably didn't fully understand the importance of that moment, but he listened. He put his skates back on, and that became the true beginning of everything. A few weeks later, near the end of July 2019, Kihara received an unexpected proposal from Riku Miura herself. "Would you like to skate together as a pair?" After ending her partnership with Ikehashi, Miura chose Kihara as the partner she wanted moving forward. An official tryout was arranged, and the moment they stepped onto the ice together for the very first time, Kihara felt something he had never experienced before. Later, he described it like this: "From the very first moment we skated together, I knew it would work." In another interview, he explained the feeling even more dramatically. "It felt like being struck by lightning." That was the sensation a 26-year-old former Olympian felt while skating with a 17-year-old girl for the first time. And in that instant, something incredible happened. A man who had been considering retirement while working part-time shifts at a local skating rink suddenly rediscovered belief in his future again. Their compatibility was obvious almost immediately. Technically, their skating styles matched naturally. Kihara later said he had never met another skater with such strong body awareness and control. Even more remarkably, their skating posture and movement mechanics looked almost identical. Normally, new pair teams spend months or even years trying to synchronize their skating styles. But Miura and Kihara barely needed that adjustment period. Because their movements already matched so naturally, they could spend far more time developing difficult technical elements instead. That became one of the biggest reasons why they progressed so unbelievably fast. Only days after the tryout, on August 5, 2019, their club officially announced the formation of the new pair team. And then, only 5 days later, carrying nothing more than tourist visas and a dream, Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara boarded a plane to Canada. Neither of them could have imagined what would happen next. With nothing but tourist visas in their hands, Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara left for Canada. Their destination was Oakville, Ontario, where Bruno Marcotte had built his training base alongside world champion Milan Duhamel. That skating club in Oakville would soon become the birthplace of an entirely new era in Japanese figure skating. And waiting for Miura, there was another life-changing encounter. Milan Duhamel quickly became far more than just a coach. For Riku Miura, she became both a technical mentor and an emotional support system. As one of the most accomplished female pair skaters in the world, Duhamel's experience was priceless for a young skater who was still relatively new to pair skating itself. To Miura, learning from Duhamel was almost like studying directly from a living textbook of world-class pair skating. Meanwhile, Bruno Marcotte provided the structure, strategy, and vision. Together, Marcotte and Duhamel created perhaps the perfect environment for growth. Looking back now, it's impossible to ignore how important that coaching team became in shaping the future of Riku and Ryuichi. And from there, the 7-year journey truly began. The results came unbelievably fast. In 2019, only 2.5 months after forming their partnership, Miura and Kihara won their debut competition at the Eastern Japan Championships. Then, in November of the same year, they stunned the skating world by finishing 5th at the NHK Trophy during the Grand Prix Series, an almost unheard-of result for a pair that had only been together for 3 months. Their rise continued rapidly. They earned a spot on Japan's team for the 2020 World Championships, but the event was ultimately canceled because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Still, they kept improving, finishing 8th at the Four Continents Championships that same season. Then came 2021. At the World Championships, Miura and Kihara captured a bronze medal, becoming the first Japanese pair team in 9 years to stand on the podium since Narumi Takahashi and Marvin Tran in 2012. Japanese pair skating, once considered nearly impossible to compete internationally, suddenly had hope again. But they were only getting started. At the 2022 Beijing Olympics, they helped Japan win the silver medal in the team event. Then, in the individual pair competition, they achieved another historic result by finishing 7th, the highest Olympic placement ever for a Japanese pair team at that time. And then came the moment that changed everything forever. The 2023 World Championships. Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara won the gold medal, becoming the first world champions in Japanese pair skating history. It was no longer just a comeback story. It was history being rewritten in real time. But even after reaching the top, the challenges never stopped. In 2024, Kihara suffered from lumbar spondylolysis once again, forcing him to miss part of the season. Injuries threatened their momentum, doubts returned, and many wondered whether the team could ever fully recover. Then came 2025. They silenced everyone. Miura and Kihara captured gold again at the Four Continents Championships and successfully defended their world title at the World Championships, proving they were no longer surprise champions. They were now the standard of pair skating itself. And finally, February 17, 2026, the Milan Olympics. But the road to Olympic gold nearly collapsed before the free skate even began. During the short program the day before, disaster struck. One of their lifts went wrong. The mistake visibly shook Miura on the ice, and when the scores appeared, the situation looked hopeless. They sat in 5th place, trailing the German team of Hayes and Volodin by nearly 7 points, an enormous gap in pair skating. For fans around the world, it felt over. Social media exploded with disappointment. Commentators began discussing bronze medal scenarios instead of gold. After everything they had overcome, it seemed like the dream might end one step short. But the next day, Miura and Kihara delivered the performance of their lives. Every lift was perfect. Their triple twist exploded into the air with breathtaking precision. All 3 lifts received level 4, the highest possible grade. There were no stumbles, no instability, no visible hesitation. Their throw jumps landed cleanly. Their spins earned maximum levels. Every movement looked completely synchronized, as if 2 skaters had somehow become one. By the end of the program, the scoreboard showed something almost unbelievable: 158.13 points in the free skate, the highest score ever recorded in pair skating history. Their total score climbed to 231.2, enough to overtake the German pair and secure Japan's very first Olympic gold medal in pair skating. History had been made, and when you look back at that perfect Olympic performance, it's impossible not to think about the deeper story behind it. Those flawless lifts in Milan were built on trust that began years earlier, trust that started the moment Bruno Marcotte shouted one sentence across a rink in Nagoya: "Ryuichi, put your skates back on." Because if Marcotte had never called out that day, if Kihara had continued walking through those automatic doors, if he had never laced his skates back up, then perhaps Japan would never have seen that Olympic gold medal at all. And personally, this is what makes Ryuichi Kihara's story feel almost unreal. There are simply too many moments where destiny seems to quietly intervene. If Narumi Takahashi had never retired, if Riku Miura had never struggled with back injuries, if her partnership with Shoya Ikehashi had never fallen apart, if Bruno Marcotte had never visited Chukyo University that day, if Kihara's name had not been shouted at the exact moment he reached the exit doors, if even one of those moments had changed, the history of Japanese figure skating could have looked completely different. People often use the word miracle too casually. But when you look at the story of Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara, it becomes difficult not to believe that something greater was pulling everything together. Years earlier, Kihara quietly worried, "I've only ever done skating." And he was right, skating was all he had, but in the end, that very thing carried him all the way to the top of the world. The man who once worried about lacking real-world experience while working behind a rental skate counter eventually became an Olympic champion and world record holder. Few stories in figure skating history have ever delivered such a dramatic reversal of fate, and perhaps the most beautiful detail came the day after winning Olympic gold. Kihara sent a message to his hometown media in Nagoya: "Thank you, everyone." Even after reaching the top of the world, his heart still remembered the skating rink where he worked part-time, and the people who supported him before anyone else believed the dream was possible. So now I want to ask you, did you already know the story behind Bruno Marcotte's words, "Put your skates back on"? Did you know that an Olympic champion once worked quietly behind a skate rental counter in Nagoya while considering retirement? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you love figure skating stories like this, the untold journeys, the struggles, the hidden moments behind history, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.